आए हुजूर घर में हमारे खुशामदीद उतरे हैं आसमान से तारे
Assalamu alaikum
खुशामदीद.
warahmatullah. My name is Naveed Malik, and I'm currently serving as the president of the Maryland Jamaat. I mean, it's not a secret anymore, but we have seen it so many times on This Week with Huzoor. We have also seen it as an article in Al Hakam, Al Fazl International. But the way you experience certain things cannot be translated into an article. So I'm glad that I'm getting this opportunity to talk about that stuff. Of course, the excitement level was off the roof, and we were very excited when we hear about Huzoor coming. When you realize that it's actually going to happen, that's when the excitement level shoots up as well. But it also, that's when you want to gear up for the preparations too. So whenever a visit of this magnitude happens, the first thing we like to focus on is what are the numbers we are dealing with? What is our expectation from the surrounding Jamaats, not just within USA, but also internationally? Because whenever Huzoor comes to US, of course, Canada is close by. They of course get excited and they want to come too. So we started the groundwork talking about what the expectation is. So the rough number that we had in our mind was close to 7,000 plus on a Jummah, if Huzoor is doing Jummah here, and about 4,000 to 5,000 average daily when Huzoor is here on a weekday. So those were the numbers we started playing with. And once we had those rough ballpark numbers, we started looking at, okay, what could be the issues? Where would we park? Where would the ziyafat activities be? Where would the lajna stuff be taken care of? This year around, there was an added challenge of doing COVID testing. So that was thrown in the mix as well. So we had to figure out how to manage COVID testing for such a big crowd. Being in the headquarter, one benefit that we have, which probably other Jamaats where Huzoor visited did not, was that the Jalsa team supported us. They were the one who did the initial layout of the ground and where the marquees would be and what would happen where. So their guidance was valuable. Parking, as you know, is always a challenge when it comes to Beit Rahman with such a big crowd. As I said, 7,000 plus people to deal with. We were looking at initially the churches and the school buildings around and the school parking lots, and there are plenty of them in the area, but none of them were unfortunately available in those specific days. Out of nowhere, another miracle, blessings of Khilafat, we got a call from one of the places we called earlier. It was an abandoned shopping plaza. So they approached us and they said, okay, you guys have inquired about it, and yes, we are available. Please feel free to use us and full availability to you. So that was definitely a miracle because we kind of gave up on all the other options that we were looking at. And then this happened. There were quite a few places that Huzoor had to inaugurate or inspect during his trip in Beit Rahman. There were about 4 guest houses, and again there was a race against the clock to finish some of that work too. Some of the contractors were tied up, they couldn't meet the deadline, but our Ahmadi brothers, they stepped up, some of the people who were in construction businesses, and they worked extra hours, long days, shifts to actually make that stuff happen. And those 4 or 5 Ahmadi brothers were here from Fajr till late Isha, and sometimes even staying here in the masjid to finish the job that needed to be done. So very thankful to them, of course, and may Allah reward them for all their hard work. Of course, we become the source to execute these plans, but most of these plans are they are running through the divine support of Allah and the blessing of Khilafat. And there were so many different examples of those things materializing in very strange ways, and that was a source of taqwiyat and strength in all of our iman in many different ways. The parking lot was not supposed to be used as a parking lot during Huzoor's trip, but there was still a need for that space to be paved and have it ready before Huzoor's trip, before the marquees go on and before the other stuff happens on it. And the company we contacted for pavement, they canceled at the last minute too. like we won't be able to do it. We're busy with some other bigger projects, and sorry, we won't be able to do it. So just a plain no, and that was surprising. That came as a surprise. But what we did not knew that Allah's divine help will come to our rescue again. And one of the MD brothers, he was just dropping off his children to a daycare, and he stopped at one of the intersection where there was a company who was paving that part of the intersection. So he called them, he talked to them, and gave him the scope of the projects inside Beit Rahman, and they said, yeah, sure, we'll be able to accommodate it, and we will be happy to work on it. So Allah's mysterious ways came to our help again.
हुजूर घर में हमारे खुशामदीद जागे हैं आज बख्त हमारे खुशामदीद आए हुजूर घर
The moment Huzoor walked into the premises, it was a completely a different feeling. You were in that hospitality mode. You not just for, of course, Huzoor. I mean, Huzoor is the prime reason everybody was here. But then there are so many other guests who came to actually see Huzoor and do prayers behind Huzoor. So that hospitality mode kicked in, and we were trying to take care of everybody who walked in through those doors. There was a kid who was not from the Maryland Jamaat. I believe he was from a surrounding Jamaat, and out of his excitement when he saw Huzoor, he fell face first in the parking lot, and Huzoor noticed that. But that was the time just before namaz, so Huzoor was walking to do his to lead namaz. But then when Huzoor walked out, Huzoor saw the same family standing on the side. Huzoor stopped, asked him if he was doing okay, spoke to the mother, put his hand on the child's face, and the smile that we saw at that time on that child's face was priceless. I mean, that tells you how much a Khalifa loves his children, literally, and there was no match for that affection when we saw at that time. My mother, she is 70 plus, she had a little accident. She ended up falling right at the time when Huzoor actually drove into the premises. And we had to call the ambulance. She ended up fracturing her hip, and yes, she was worried about the pain. She was suffering definitely because of the hip fracture. But she was asking me, I am taking you away from your duty of being with Huzoor. That shows you the other side of the love that the membership have for Huzoor Anwar. On the flip side, Huzoor Anwar, when he was told about that incident, Huzoor inquired about her well-being, that okay, surgery is done, हो गई है या नहीं हुई अभी, and then Huzoor even sent the bouquet to the hospital through his private secretary of the office, and kept inquiring about her well-being. So what I noticed during Huzoor trip was how flexible Huzoor was in his schedule, and if something was asked of him, he very graciously accepted most of those requests. The Joppa town was initially, which is the Ansar housing complex, was not on the calendar. It was not part of the schedule for Huzoor Anwar. But when Sadr Saab Ansarullah mentioned that he wanted this opportunity to have Huzoor there and inspect the community center and the mosque over there, Huzoor very graciously approved it. And he said, sure, let's go there, let's see what's happening. Huzoor went there, and you could see the excitement on his face. He, just from that day one when it was just a thought, and now that this whole community of about 48 Ahmadi houses out of 52 that are there, that excitement and that happiness on Huzoor's face was very much visible. Huzoor's bulk of time was actually spent in mulaqats. I have never seen anybody so excited to get a call of approval that okay, your mulaqat has been approved. And all those elderly folks, Buzurgan, you can tell that they have been waiting for this day from so many years. Some of them moved from Pakistan. They had to go through struggle of migrating through Sri Lanka or Thailand, and they finally arrived here. And all they were asking for was a chance to meet Huzoor. And some of them had to, of course, leave their jobs, odd jobs, and they didn't care. When the moment they received the call that yes, your mulaqat is approved, they came running with their families. Going through those long lines of COVID testing, security checks, all that, not a single thing dimmed their passion. And they actually were so excited after that. Some of them I spoke to, They were so thankful for this opportunity. And I kept telling them, it's not me, it's Huzoor Anwar. There is a family in Maryland who had a chance to meet Huzoor Anwar beforehand, so they didn't really qualify as per the conditions. Those were set by the Mulaqat team. But the situation was as such that the gentleman was sick on a bed in a rehab, and he has not been able to come to Beit Rahman from last few years, 3 or 4 years. And then the wife approached me and requested me if we can be considered, because that's all he's asking for. He cannot communicate very well, but even on that bed, he's asking me that if I get a chance, I would somehow manage to come through an ambulance or whatever the health services offer would be. I would like to come and do the mulaqat with Huzoor. So after working with Shamshad Saab and his Mulaqat team, we were able to get a slot for him. And the gentleman actually had to come on a wheelchair, go through all the hassle of going through those long lines and everything. And the excitement among the family at that time of availing that opportunity was amazing. That we have been trying to do from so many years. But just because Khalifa of Islam was here and people heard it from Huzoor's own, in Huzoor's own words, inshallah those things will start happening. For example, we have been working on bringing people back to masjid and congregational salat and all that stuff. But with me saying it, with Secretary of Tarbiyat saying it, or auxiliaries working on it, it did not have that impact. But the moment Huzoor mentioned it in his Friday sermon, and you probably have heard it in the question and answer session with the Waqfeen now as well, Huzoor said, if there is only one thing I want American Jamaat to work on, that is congregational salat. Bring people back to masjid, focus on it. So just because Huzoor has said those words, we have a very strong belief that inshallah.
Offer your obligation of 5 daily prayers. Each and every member of the Jamaat should make it a point that he should offer his 5 daily prayers. And not only pray lightly but fervently. This is an obligation. And if you offer 5 daily prayers, you would know your responsibilities. In this way, you would be discharging your duty towards Allah Ta'ala.
All the concerned departments and auxiliaries will start working on it with more vigor and more energy, and we will see those shortcomings go away and inshallah hit the goal. So that was the primary objective. But in the Khudam al-Ahmadiyya capacity, they never volunteered before, so this was their big opportunity to see how effectively they can contribute. So some of them, after graduating from that little, and they were happy that they were actually serving the guest of the promised Messiah, guest of the Khalifa, and without their tireless effort, this would not have been as smooth as it went.
So the final point.
Roles, and because they have seen the bigger picture, they have seen that it's not just a local Jamaat kind of event, it's a global Jamaat. We have a Khalifa who is the Khalifa of the entire Ummah, and that becomes its own motivation, of course. So those youngsters, inshallah, will be carrying the burden going forward.
आसमान से तारे खुशामदीद आए हुजूर घर में हमारे खुशामदीद आए हुजूर घर में हमारे खुशामदीद उतरे हैं आसमान से तारे खुशामदीद